Are we ready? Here we go. Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Paul Posey with Negative to Positive Talk Show right here every other Wednesday, first and third Wednesday here at Status Network. And today I have a great friend of mine, mentor. His name is Mario Peter, and he's a good friend of mine. And I had him come in today because one of my friends, Melvin Morris, was sick today, and I called a friend and asked him to fill in. And I go to him for the things that I need that I don't know, and we talk about a lot of things, from cars to the moon, and he shares his wisdom with me, and that's why I say you should always have a mentor for each part of your life. And so today we're going to talk about dads with no dads. First, we're going to let Mario give a little background on yourself, please.
Well, Paul, first of all, thanks for having me as your guest. Your friendship is invaluable to me. Your topic today, fathers, is near and dear to my heart because my father is celebrating his birthday. My father is deceased, but his birthday is December 7th.
Okay. Wow.
So 2 days from today, my father would, doing the math, would probably be about 114 years old today.
Wow. Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Okay. All right.
Yes. I am 65 years of age. I was born and raised in Central America, Panama. Had a great upbringing living in the Canal Zone. As you know, the Canal Zone, the Panama Canal is one of the 7 wonders of the world. Mm-hmm. As a young man, fresh out of high school, I worked on the Panama Canal.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And, yeah. And in later years, I had an opportunity to travel, book a cruise, Royal Caribbean cruise. It took me through the same canal that I worked on in my youth.
Is that right? So you was like, and I was over there, and I took lunch over there.
Absolutely. Yeah, with a martini in my hand.
Right, because you wasn't working anymore.
Absolutely.
So what age did you start working?
I started working at 18,
mm-hmm.
$1.15 an hour.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of money back then?
It was enough money for a teenager to be able to take his girlfriend out for a serious date.
Okay, then. That's what you want. You got to provide. What's it? No romance without finance.
No romance without finance.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So our topic tonight is dad without dads, and the reason I came to that topic is I watch people engage each other and families engage each other, and you really don't understand what it's like for a man to not have a dad. I invited Mario to be on the show so he could talk about his relationship with his dad and how what it did for him. And I'll probably give some insight what it's like for me to grow up without a dad and now having to do dad stuff. So let's go with the good stuff first. All right, and then we'll check on those notes. But just give us some background what it's like to have a dad and what it was like to have him in the home.
Well, the one thing that my dad instilled in me that I still carry with me today, and it's not what he said, but what he did.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a man of his word. And as you know, children have a way of watching adults, imitating adults, and not doing what they say, but doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
My first test of my dad, he would work from 3 in the evenings to about 10 to 1 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked my dad, I remembered this vividly at around 6 to 7 years of age, to bring me home a hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was contrary to what my mother wishes was, but it was a bonding opportunity and it was a test. And my dad, at 10 to 1, opened the door. I couldn't sleep because I was waiting for this hamburger.
Right.
And sure enough, my dad had my little bribe.
Mm-hmm.
He brought the hamburger home. Now, that in itself is not much.
Mm-hmm.
But in building relationships, people test and verify. And here I was as a child,
Mm-hmm.
Several different tests and verify. And that one test and verify was one of the building blocks that helped me emulate the behavior of my father. Now, someone listening may say, hey, that's just one instance. You have a father, you have relationships ongoing, but it was always test and verify leading up to trust,
Uh-huh.
which is what developed over the years, which can make me say today, if I give you my word is my bond.
Got you. And that's really important because we have nothing else but you when we're talking about from the point of a kid. All we have is you. And you're talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the expression of love.
Absolutely.
So trust is love, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that if I had a chance to test that, but my kids test me now. They test me now because they make sure that I am paying attention to them
Mm-hmm.
and to their needs.
Okay.
And have I failed? I'm pretty sure I failed a couple of times because I didn't know, as you say, it was a test. It was either I was going to keep my word or do something out of the ordinary to make them feel special.
Well, one of the lessons I've learned about tests is that our greatest lessons come from our failures. So I've had to back up and recognize that it's only when I fail that I really learn.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody going through life without any failures is not really making any headway into growth.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunities to fail your kids, recognize that you're human, get on your knees and ask your God or your deity for guidance, makes us human and it brings us closer to the people we love.
Mm-hmm.
So that time when you fail and stand back from a situation, the story before the story about the hamburger was my father didn't come home with the hamburger on the first request.
Uh-huh.
But my father communicated, son, I was working hard. I didn't bring the hamburger. He explained himself.
Right.
And the next occasion he had to prove himself.
Mm-hmm.
Here is a grown man to a little child. He validated his worth to me.
Wow. That recently happened to me with me and Paul. I remember he told me the other day.
Paul,
And
your son?
my son, Paul.
Okay. How old is Paul?
Paul's 24.
Okay.
He's in the Navy right now. Just promoted to E3. You go, Paul. What's the call sign for the Navy? I ain't gonna say what the guy said the other day. But so Paul said to me, I was supposed to give him one of my cars, and I didn't give him the car. But I didn't give him the conversation of why he didn't get the car.
Communication.
Right. And I didn't know, I didn't tell him, and he didn't ask me. But he didn't ask me until we were together the other day.
Okay.
And when he asked me the other day, but I know I failed him, but I failed not to tell him. There was a reason why I didn't, but I see where I failed at is because I didn't communicate the change in plan. Okay. So they're looking for you to state something and stick to it, which makes it more powerful when you do it. But it's also powerful when you don't do it, because I needed him to tell me that I forgot to tell him. Because I didn't think about the choice that I made in order to do what I had to do. So I had to do something. I had to change the car out before it was time to give him the car because the car was failing me.
Okay.
But it should have been a conversation, and that's what he told me. I tell you, I love this guy. I love this guy. Great shout out to Paul Posey. I hope he called in tonight. That if things change, you must state that. So, but there's things you don't know, and from your experience with your dad, you know this now.
Right.
And that's why I asked you on the show to talk about something that's that I don't know, because I didn't know that. So, did you have any more to the story?
Well, let's unpack the communication with you and Paul as a benefit to your listeners and to anybody who is worthy of this wisdom. This could have dragged out for years. Paul Jr. could have internalized his pain and not said anything to you. You failed him. You didn't communicate that you wanted to give him a safe car. The car was not ready. Was it him that brought it to your attention over the Thanksgiving period that you let him down by not delivering on your word, or was it you that went to him?
No, he brought it to me because I made my decision without him, so there was no explaining my decision to him, which it should have been because he was supposed to be the receiver of it. Right. And yes, so it was something, and you're right. This happened in 2000, I want to say 14.
Okay.
This happened in 2014. So yeah, it took years to come out for him to bring it to my attention.
Okay.
So yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Well,
now, there's other things that we spoke over the holiday with my other kids that took years to
come to a head.
Absolutely, because they have to feel there's a time that you will actually respond.
Yes.
That's why sometimes you don't get the immediate response to something not happening, and it's like, well, he ain't going to listen, or you understand what I'm saying, right?
I do understand what you're saying, but let's before we get to unpacking Paul. A lot of people weaponize that information. You didn't do for me.
Right.
So therefore, my love is not open to you.
Right.
And if you hurt my mother, then I don't want nothing to do with you. They weaponize the information or the situation and use it to beat you and to bring you pain.
Right.
As opposed to a family saying, in your case, you and Paul were able to reconcile and you were able to explain to Paul why he didn't get the car at the time. You recognize your humanity. You recognize your mistake in not communicating that to him. You probably, as a parent and as the man who bought the car, owned the car, had to pay to fix the car before you could get it to him, was dealing with a world that is not all that friendly.
Right, because like there's always not a nice time to have that conversation. There's no good time. Right. But you know, I think there's things we want to know, and there's things we should ask. Absolutely. And we should bring it to light. If we did that more often, that would save more families the grief of rehashing old pains at a holiday. because if you don't come together until that holiday, then that's the only time you get to talk face to face, and that's why you see some things that explode, little explosions at the holiday.
Yes.
So, yeah, that is a great look at that, because I didn't think it at a bigger level. I just looked at it that my son reminded me of something that I didn't do, but it was a decision made, and we had to learn how to communicate with it. And I appreciate him bringing it up to me. So, because blindly I did not know that it bothered him.
Right.
And I think those subconscious thoughts, when they see you, or they see you do something else for somebody else,
Yes.
there's like, but you forgot about me.
Yes.
And that's not right.
And they weaponize it because he's saying, you don't love me.
Right. But that's truly not the case. But here's one thing I learned. You cannot debate someone else's feelings. That's how they feel. You understand what I'm saying? If that's how you feel, I can't change how you feel. All I can do is answer to the questions that you give me. If you feel sorrow, I can't tell you don't feel sorrow. I can't tell you don't feel jealous. I can't tell you don't feel happy. That's the way you feel. Now, if I had my hand in it, all I can do is answer to it. But that's how I see. I don't argue. I can argue facts, but I can't argue feelings.
There's nothing wrong in what you just said. I just take a different perspective. Relationships are like bank accounts. You can't get out what you didn't put in.
Right.
So if you're building a relationship, like you and I have built a relationship as friends, I give you my word, I follow through on my word. You give me your word, you follow through on your word. You may ask me to do something for you, I ask you to do something for me.
Right.
We spend time together, we share our experiences. So it's not like there isn't we invest our time. That's the first thing we have to
Absolutely.
to do.
The most valuable thing we have.
That's right. So now you have Paul, you have your daughters, you have other relationships, and the first thing invested is the time, and the communication that goes with that investment leads to trust. So the relationship is the account, and when there is a crisis, you look in your account and says, who can I call? Or when there is joy, you know, you recently completed your college education. Who did you call? You called the people who you had invested in, and they came to celebrate that victory.
Right.
And we just enjoyed Thanksgiving, and we all did that. We called the people, or we were with the people who we love to celebrate that special time.
Okay. So we're getting kind of away from the topic. Let's get back to dads.
All right.
Okay. Growing up without a dad was it was okay until you realized you didn't have a dad. It was okay that mom ran everything. It was okay to be directed to how to keep a house, and to, as a matter of fact, even she was Don King for my first fight. My mom was. But the idea of when you find out that you don't, or you see other children that have a dad in the same household,
Okay.
there became, I can't say pain, but I can't say resentment, but painful, which pain turned to anger for me.
Okay.
Because I didn't get my say, and someone didn't love me. Someone didn't look out for me. Someone didn't speak up for me. Someone didn't show up for me. And that anger just got worse.
Okay.
It got worse over time. And there was I think dads kind of cool that hot head in a growing young man to say, hey, you don't conduct yourself like that, or you need to straighten up, or you need to pull your head out of your butt. You know, that's to me, that's his job.
Right.
And if he's not there to do his job, moms have to do the job, but mom is not him.
Right.
And so this anger just kept going and going and going and going and going. And I really didn't know how bad it was until I met him.
Okay.
I didn't know how bad my anger was because I thought that was my norm. I mean, like going over to the Navy base and fighting those squids. I mean, Navy personnel. I would actually just start a fight, and I was notorious to be a fighter for no reason.
You was looking for an outlet for your pain.
Absolutely. And the pain had manifested into anger, which no one could explain it to me, but it was just a fire inside of me. And the day I shook his hand, when I finally met him, for those who don't know, I didn't meet my dad till I was age 27. And when I put my hand in his hand, that's when it changed. When I touched his hand, it subsided well over than half of the anger there was like a little generator inside of me. And so what I did was it calmed me, but in the next day, I was reminded how important I was to my kids. But it had nothing, the anger and the things that transpired the day before when I met him was good. It was good for me.
Oh, okay.
But when I introduced my kids to him, that was a whole different thing because now I'm dad and I have to make the decision. So, but being a dad without a dad means everything you do is from scratch. Everything you do from scratch. If it's not modeled for you what the role of a dad is or what it's like when he speaks or what it's like when he lays out a plan or a family goal, you have to learn that all these things are missing. All these things that are missing, the discipline, the plan, the caring, the protection, all that's missing in your repertoire of being a dad. And you just have to, if someone tells you it, or what I'm learning right now is we should seek it. We should seek the things we're about to be. I have a mentor for my photography. I call him and I show him what I did, and he tells me what I did and what I could do. I have you, and when I talk about these theoretical things in my head about life and men, when we talk about that. And then I have Melvin Morris when I talk about business and what direction I should go. I call him for that. We would like to think that we can get in one-stop shop, at least in the beginning of our life. But imagine when you grow up and you have kids, now you got to learn that you didn't get any of that.
Well, let me jump in here for a minute because I recognize where you're going with this.
Right.
If you have mentors, and here is your wisdom, and this is one of the reasons why I admire you. None of us are perfect. None of us were born here with all the tools. We are put here to struggle. And part of your struggle as a man is to deal with the reality that was put in front of you. What you have done is you have sought out men that you respect, admire, can counsel with to get to where you want to be. If I say to you, Paul, I'm coming over tonight, would you mind frying some chicken? All you have to do is go to Google, find a recipe for some fried chicken. Mm-hmm. It's going to say flour. It's going to say black pepper and salt. It's going to say coat the chicken. You may dip it in a batter of buttermilk, or you may dip it in a batter of eggs.
Right.
Take it out of the batter. Set the grease in a frying pan to 350 degrees. Right. Fry the chicken for 20 minutes. Put it on a rack and let it cool and let the grease drip from the chicken, and you have fried chicken. Right. So you don't necessarily have to start out perfect. In a situation where you didn't have a father but you shook your father's hand, obviously what things that you did say that you did was you had to forgive that man.
Wait, hold on a second. Personally, I don't believe in forgiveness.
Well, you said out of your own mouth.
I said it changed. Yes, that was not about forgiveness. I don't know why it changed. It wasn't about me forgiving him. It truly wasn't. See, this is sometimes, and this is where some people differ, when you don't have. So sometimes we don't understand how bad that is. Okay. So the idea is, I didn't have to forgive him. There was nothing to forgive him for. It's just that anger in me of missing someone that I didn't even know I missed because I was told he was dead.
Well, maybe I misspoke as it relates to the level of forgiveness.
Right.
But there was something in you that didn't walk away hating him, and you didn't walk away wanting revenge for the pain.
When
that
I
he brought
walked
you.
away from him, it had nothing to do with me and his relationship. It had to do with the relationship with my child and him. And that was going to be a problem. Will your mic in, son? So the decision was made because of how his first impression was with my children,
Okay.
that I never wanted to go back.
All right.
So I made that decision instantly. But it
Okay.
wasn't about forgiveness. No, some pain comes so long, so deep. It's not about this forgiveness that people keep thinking that people are supposed to have. Sometimes you just leave things alone. Because if you want restitution or you want an understanding of why people do what they do, you can ask them, but sometimes you don't get an answer.
Right.
Or they make it so difficult to get an answer, you don't want to ask.
Okay.
So at that point in my life, now, this is how I feel because I didn't have one. It wasn't like I had one that was taken away from me and everything that I learned. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for you to do your job. You made me. That's what we want.
All right.
You can't go with the idea that it's not perfect, but you didn't even try. And this, just like when Paul asked me questions, I answered all his questions. You know what he told me?
What did he tell you?
It didn't matter.
He just
All
wanted
your
to be
reasons
there. Mhm.
didn't matter because of how I felt.
Right.
Right, which I truly understand because you know what? He's right. Because that's why I say I don't debate people's feelings. Because no matter what answer I gave him or why I wasn't there and why I didn't do what I do, why I didn't do what I said I was going to do, it still hurt him. That's why. And what he truly wanted was to be with me.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, that's how I see it. And that's why we have to have this conversation because people don't understand what it's like for a man not to have a dad, and y'all expect us to man up. But a part of that man up part is given to us by the man who made us. That makes a world of difference. Those things you saw in your dad walking through the house, that's something you were able to see, and I wasn't able to see it.
Okay.
And if I could have saw it, good or bad or indifferent, an absence of something that an ingredient. Let's say when you're talking about making that chicken, if there's an ingredient missing, that's not really fried chicken.
But I spoke of the ingredients to the chicken, to the band that you are. You moved on from, you didn't forgive your dad, in your own words.
Right.
You shook his hand. You didn't ask him why he didn't man up and was there for you when you
You know
needed
why I
him.
didn't? The reason I asked him because by that time it really didn't matter.
Okay.
It was him connecting me to my other siblings.
Okay.
Because I was the elder of his kids.
Right.
But I was the middle child to my mother's kids. So when I showed up, it was about connecting with my brothers. Excuse me, connecting with my brothers, not connecting with him.
Okay.
Because I knew I wasn't going to get the straight skinny, so I didn't ask. I wasn't going to ask for lies or ask for his part of the story. I didn't even have my mother's part of the story. So by the time I showed up, it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. Why? Because I'm 27 at that time.
Okay.
And I wasn't really expecting him to love me. I was opening the door to the new love or the new siblings that I had.
Well, at the end of the day, you have 6 kids, 7 kids, and a recipe for success is what you have formulated.
I'm trying.
You're trying. You're working on it.
Yeah.
You're surrounded yourself with men that you respect and admire. You read. You study. I've watched you take your hobby, photography, and do beautiful work with that.
Click boom.
Click boom. So you've moved on from.
Well, the move on part is I can't change the past.
Right.
So I have to develop the future.
Right.
And that's what I'm doing. As much as it hurts sometimes,
Okay.
I still move forward to the future because it wasn't done for me. It doesn't give me a right not to do for them.
Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
now Paul is listening.
Yes.
Paul is your firstborn son, your
Yes.
oldest. What it is you want to say to Paul about that experience, that that void that you had that you're not going to let him down with going forward?
I love him for who he's going to be because he's connected to me.
Okay.
And
You lead by example.
I lead by example. And I want him to be greater than me.
Right.
And all my decision-making flaws, I'm going to tell him. I do tell him.
Okay.
It's just that I can't tell you what you don't ask.
Right.
Yeah.
And it hurt you when Paul asked why you wasn't there for me. But in the reality of the world that we live in, you was working, providing a living.
Mm-hmm.
His mother was taking care of him.
Mm-hmm.
You was doing what you needed to do as a working man in the military,
Right.
and you couldn't be everywhere at all times.
That's true. So, go ahead.
So Paul has some pain,
Mm-hmm.
and as Paul matures and walk in a situation where he has a wife, kids of his own,
Right.
there may come a time when Paul come back to you and say, you know, Dad, I didn't appreciate your answer at the time, but now that I'm walking in your shoes, seeing how cold and cruel life can be, life is not a perfect situation,
Uh-huh.
then I can understand what you did.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a wonderful thing that Paul gets to do that.
Right.
See, that's the business right there is, and when you're a cycle breaker, Paul gets to do that.
Okay.
I don't get to do that. And I understand that. It doesn't mean that I don't fall short to the feeling neglected or left out, but Paul gets to do it. And that's the wonderful part about it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I want him to have it better than me.
Yes.
And the only way I can do that is either trample through my own horseshit that I've created
Right.
to make sure he gets it.
Right.
Truly, I get it. You say we're human, I get it. And I want him to get it. I want my girls to get it too.
Yes.
And the part about falling down as a dad is, I remember as kids, we didn't see them dads get up. They were down, they stayed down. They didn't get up. They didn't clean up the mess they made. We as adults have to swim through the mess they made and hopefully find some closure or some answers to the questions that were never asked.
Well, there's 1,000,001 stories out there. So some men made, black and white, brown and red, yellow, men have made mess all over the place, especially when it comes to relationships with women. So that blanket statement, if we can back away from that and focus on...
I didn't make it cultural.
I did,
Oh, okay.
because we're human. But where I'm trying to go to with where I'm trying to get to with this is, in the back of my mind, there is Paul and his your other
7. Thank you. They'll remind me. But go ahead.
your other 6 siblings.
Oh, okay.
What they can learn from their father's challenge. There is a door that maybe we don't get a chance to open tonight, but that door that you said you didn't want to go through was asking your father for his reasons why he wasn't there for you. We haven't gone through that door tonight. You didn't want to go through that door.
Well, no. I didn't want to go through that door that day. I don't want to go through that door today.
Okay.
You know why? Because listen, I'm driven for an answer. If I'm not going to get an answer, why waste the conversation? And I think that's what we do as young people, too. If we're not going to get the answer, why have the conversation?
Well, you didn't ask the question, apparently. So how are you going to get an answer if you don't ask a question?
And I'm not sitting here asking for the answer.
So that's a door that you have not gone through with him.
He's dead.
Okay, but he was alive at the time.
Mario, sometimes as a dad, and this is why I made my decision, I walked away as a dad. I didn't walk away as a hurt son. I walked away as a dad because I didn't appreciate his impression that he gave to my kids.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with him and I.
Okay.
What was more important to me was my relationship to my kids, because if he was going to be a grandfather of my kids, I have to allow them into his space and into his world. And from what he showed me that day, he does not have any right to have them in his space.
All right. Well, I know the backstory, and since you don't want to put that out on the air this evening,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go any further into that backstory as to whether, unless you say you want to go down that road.
No, we don't want to go down that road
Okay.
because he ain't going to get no answer to it.
Okay.
All right. So what's next?
Well, what's next is the example that you are setting for Paul and the other 6 siblings. You have dealt with your pain.
Yes.
You shared with me over the Thanksgiving. It was a painful process of answering your kids' questions about some of the things you did.
Yep.
In their upbringing, how it may have left them feeling unloved, and how by communicating what you was going through, it kind of bridged some of the questions that they had in their hearts and on their minds.
Yes.
And it's showing for the men who recognize that there may have been a path that you have walked, kind of like Paul, whose dad was not there for him, that you can put building blocks in place to break the cycle. Paul you used the term cycle breaker. I like that.
Yes.
I like that a lot. So any more cycle breaking things that you do that you want to share with your audience?
Pick your friends better.
Hallelujah.
See, that's why I brought you in here, because you know what? When I'm talking to other people, I'm relentless also. But I think we need to understand, when you don't have a dad, and this is what the topic is about, is it's not automatic. It's not automatic that you're going to do dad stuff. These are things, if you really, really want to be a great dad, you really, really are going to have to take those steps into the woods and learn these things. And sometimes it's in reaction. And this is what one of my biggest things about being on the show is, let's stop being so reactive, because if you want to drive a car, you do what when you want to drive a car? You take the written test, right?
Right.
And then you'll get a driver's license.
Right.
And then you'll buy a car.
Right.
And then you'll drive on the highway. But there's a lot of things we don't do like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we just end up with a car, and we
Okay.
don't know how to drive. Don't know what turn signal is, don't know how to put gas in it, but we got a car. And that's the same way sometimes when we have families. We just end up with kids, but we don't know what to do with them.
Okay.
Because we never had anybody to give us driver's lessons,
Right.
which is AKA parenting,
Right.
which is proper modeling.
Right.
And those things, when those things don't happen, then you get what you get. What you do, you wreck that car, you put it in a ditch. You burn the transmission in it, right? You do those things when we could just try to do things on purpose. That is the purpose of being here, is we can't just keep wanting to just go nilly-willy and keep learning by trial and error.
Right.
Because just like you said, some of those things that you can go on the internet and get, but back in the day, you couldn't do that. And if it didn't happen in your house, you didn't speak about it. I mean, things happen in your house, you didn't speak about it. So you didn't know what was right and wrong, what was good and bad in your house at the time until you got out the house. Then you says, that's not what we did at home. You guys are doing it different.
Well, we're living in the age of technology. Everybody pretty much have a cell phone. We can Google just about anything. You could Google my name. You can Google Paul Posey's name. You can learn so much in 2018 moving into 2019 that if we're speaking to your audience,
Yes.
if I know anything about you, you are an educated man who seeks out, you love a challenge.
Kind of.
You're a man who have love for his family. You like to have a good time. You like to travel. You like good food. You're creative. You're ambitious. So the kind of person that we want to share this information and knowledge with and help be a source of inspiration to is the kind of person who may have some pain in their life.
Right.
May be dealing with some measure of challenge.
Yeah.
But want to turn that around, want to be a cycle breaker,
Yes.
negative to positive.
That's what we're talking about.
And this experience that we're sharing here
Yes.
is basically how you took a negative and made it a positive.
Yes.
You have 7 children. Your oldest son, listening now as we know he is a representative. What is Paul going to do? Paul is going to imitate his father. He's going to come to his father for coaching. His father is going to reveal some of the secrets about women. Such a wise man when it comes to women. I thank you so much for sharing.
Okay,
Thank
Mario. But you know what I really want taken away from this for Paul is to make sure that he is greater than me.
Okay.
And so he adds what he has,
Yes.
and he is able to come and bounce it off from me.
Yes.
And I think I don't want him to go through what I went through because there was no door to knock on.
Okay.
And there was nobody to answer until I got outside my home.
All right.
And then there was my grandfather, then Mr. Johnson, and you and like Marvin and Jerome Lynch. Everything that I do now, because I'm wiser now that you can't get it all in one-stop shop. But as we're born instinctively, we look for the one-stop shop. We
Okay.
look for the love from the mother and the father. And when one of them is missing, then you see the off balance of growth, and you see the anger, and you see the wanting and the searching in the wrong direction.
Yes.
For something we instinctively know is supposed to be for us.
Yes.
But you can't logically put your finger on it until you're old enough to know, and you watch other people deal with it, and you say, I really miss that man.
Mm-hmm. And there's 1,001 stories, because you know the stories of a young lady who is looking for love and finds a
Absolutely.
man who takes advantage of her, and next thing you know, she's on the street.
Absolutely.
There's 1,001 stories.
And we're going to have that in April. We're going to have that in April, the 1,001 stories. We're going to have some women come in and tell their stories, what it's like. And just like when my daughter was talking with the last show about, not being around me.
Okay.
So, yeah, I truly, the purpose of having these conversations is so everybody can have these conversations.
Okay.
And these are not easy conversations to have, because some things go all the way back to your childhood. And as we're listening to this, and I'm 51 years old, I still cry about the idea that I didn't get something that I felt I deserved. You know, when you make a child, the child is made. You created it. It was two people who created it. And if you're not continuing the mixture after that, then you're leaving something out.
Well, I didn't have the perfect parents.
Right.
So even though I had a father there, I had a mother there.
Yes.
And between my father and mother, they had some challenges. Mm-hmm. My father felt somewhat rejected because he was sent away from his mother at the age of 13. Mm-hmm. And he internalized his pain. He felt rejected. Mm-hmm. And she sent him away from his homeland to his uncle in
Mm-hmm.
Panama.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was born and raised.
Right.
But my father never forgave his mother, who he loved dearly,
Mm-hmm.
for doing that to him. Mm-hmm. So he internalized his pain. How did this man deal with conflict?
Mm-hmm.
He internalized it.
Right.
When he was angry at my mother, he internalized it.
Mm-hmm.
I was a cycle breaker, and what helped me in a period when I started having relationships with girlfriends,
Yes.
was Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars.
I read that book, actually.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me.
Mm-hmm.
There is a chapter in the book that deals with communication
Mm-hmm.
and how you listen,
Mm-hmm.
how you respond to letting your partner know that you are listening,
Yes.
how you allow your partner to then tell you if they think what you heard is what they meant,
Right.
and then the conversation proceeds from there.
Right.
That was big for me, because prior to that, I was the Iceman.
There you go.
You did something I didn't like?
I was Iron Man.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all superheroes, right? But that was something. You're absolutely right. My big idea, Mario, is if we can learn on purpose, we can do this better, because we do for what we want.
Absolutely.
You know, just like the driving thing. When you want to drive, what does it take to do that?
Motivation. You're
Absolutely.
motivated.
But we don't do it as in a family setting, because the history we've gone through, the division of family. So the pieces we want to be in place, that would be great. So, but this is where we need to get back to. We need to be doing this on purpose, because no one can tell us now that we can't be together, because we see each other and we know there's a problem. We know there's a disconnect. We know there's we don't have that statement where it says they did the best with what they had. That's not there anymore, because you can change that now.
Well, if I can change the direction and put this out there for a minute, because this is
Make it a minute. Hey, well, hold on a second before you go into that. Hey, if anybody wants to call in, which I do recommend, anybody who has a great dad, I love great dads or no dad at all. Come call and share your experience about your dad, because it's important that the dads around you understand right now that you can go out and learn and talk to others and get somebody to connect with to be better at what you're going to be as a dad. And if you don't have any kids that you haven't connect with in a while, this is the time to connect with those kids, because they want you.
Absolutely.
They want you to connect. No matter what happens after the meeting, make the meeting. And then you'll see it enhances their life, good, bad, or indifferent, more so good than bad. But the meeting must happen. The conversation must happen, because your kids and you, some of you who are listening right now, you've got something, an acorn in your shoe that belongs to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. What were you about to say, Mario?
Yeah, I lost my train of thought, but
Does that happen at 65?
it's back. It's back.
Okay, I'll just check it.
One of the residual feelings of loss that you talked about in your upbringing was the anger that you felt. You want to share? You shared a little about how you would pick fights.
Yeah.
With the Navy people. You was looking for an outlet for that anger. How have you resolved that as of late?
Well, the laws are tighter now. You just can't go around punching people.
They shoot you.
Yeah, right.
Standing your ground.
Right.
Now.
So, and also know that if you get in a government check and you go to prison, they'll reduce your money down to $113 a month. So you don't want to do that. There's no need. There's no igniter. There was a natural igniter to my anger. It was just, but now you have to warm me up to it to be violent. So I have the capability of being violent. I have that. But the igniter is not there, because I see the bigger picture. Oh, I can understand why they're that angry. Or I can understand me now. I don't have to do what I did. I'm not that mad as I was, because it did change. It changed that day. It went down. But I have the capability of, I still, because I had created that violent part of me.
Well, where did the anger come from? That's the question I'm asking for you. So your mother was head of household.
Yes.
She was mother and father to you.
Yes.
Where did the anger come from? The missing that you, or did you feel that you wasn't loved, you wasn't cared for,
Absolutely.
that you wasn't worthy?
Yeah. Keep going.
So is that where that anger comes from?
I think so, because
or did some of your
Hey, we got a caller. Looks like my good friend Greg. Hold on a second. Hey, you calling the Negative to Positive Show? What's going on, Gregory?
Mr. Paul Posey, what's going on, bro? Mr. Mario, how are you?
Hey, Greg, doing fine, sir. Glad to hear your voice.
Man, hey, this is some awesome stuff you guys got going on tonight, man. I really appreciate you guys' conversation and sharing, man.
Thank you, Greg. What's up? So, Greg, did you grow up with your dad?
Man, I'll tell you, my biological father, I never knew who he was, but I'll tell you, my stepdad, who passed away when he was 50 years old, man, he taught me like so much. And it's sad for me because, for him to pass away and us not to really, enjoy the relationship where we had built it to after I was grown up.
Wow.
That was kind of sad to me not to be able to have that experience with him. But what made me happy was that he knew that I appreciated the things, the good and the bad, that I learned from him as I was growing up, because I had an opportunity to share that with him before he passed away.
Wow. Greg, if there's one lesson that you want to pass on to others that you learned from your stepdad, what was one of the things that he taught you that you use even today?
Man, he told me that you have to be a man of your word.
Hallelujah.
If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it.
Yes, sir.
At all costs. Mm-hmm. And if you cannot do it, you have to be willing to let the person know, whatever the situation is.
Sir.
You have to let somebody know that you can't do it.
Right.
Be a man of your word. I will never ever forget that. If you say you're going to do it, you got to do it.
Yes, sir.
There you go. That's
lesson for life.
Positive modeling right there. Positive.
Lesson
I appreciate
for
that.
Yes, sir.
Hey, did you have anything else, Greg?
No, man, I just wanted to call in, man, let you know, hey, man, you know I'll be down there soon with you. I'll see you when you get down here to Indy, man. I'm
Absolutely.
so proud of you, man. Hey, I'm so proud of you, man.
Well, thank you,
I'm
Greg.
proud to even say that I know you, man. Hey, you know, that's real talk, man.
And I appreciate you too, Greg. That's why, I think the stars and the moon and line came together, and within the last 2 years, we spoke more and more. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's
man,
what it should
awesome
be.
show, man. I appreciate you guys, man. Good stuff. Man, God bless you both, man.
God
I'll talk
bless
to
you, Greg.
soon.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye.
Yes, sir.
Well, it looks like how we doing on time? I think we almost done for the evening. Ned, we doing? Oh, I'm gonna take this one. Okay. Hey, you called the Negative Deposit Show. This is Paul Posey.
Hi, Paul Posey and company. How are you all this evening?
Doing great.
We are powerful today.
Who are we speaking to?
Who's this?
This is Lanita.
Hey, Lanita.
Hey,
Man,
Lanita.
long time. How you been?
I am fantastic. I just wanted to call in and say I'm so glad I was able to tune in tonight. I hate that I've been missing you. And I'm so encouraged by what you're doing and how you're trying to bless the community with your life and the things that you've learned, and just wanting to share what you've learned. I wanted to say that as a woman who was I was adopted, so I've never known my biological father. My adopted father was adopted, and I was with him when he met his biological father at 37 years old.
Wow.
My mother was adopted,
Wow.
and she did not meet her biological father until she was well into her 20s. And then I then married a man, my children's father, whose dad lived 3 blocks away from him and did not acknowledge him at all.
Wow.
So I wanted to say that all of these men are African American men. And I would just say that the same love you carry for your child when they're born, when they're little, and you're in love with them, keep that same love for them.
Okay.
Even as they become adults, because they need you. They need to know their lineage. They need to know who they are, where they come from. They need to know your experiences, good and bad.
Absolutely.
Right.
That helps them later.
Now, Lenita, we talked about cycle breaking, and Paul gave some great examples of how he's broken the cycle with him and Paul Jr., and how he's being an example to his other siblings. Any cycle breaking things that you have done or seen your stepfather, stepmother, or anybody else do?
I would probably say, just for myself in general, I noticed that neither of my grandmothers tried to foster the relationship between the fathers and the children. And so even though I'm divorced at this time, I do try to foster that relationship, because I do realize that when you are a parent that isn't in the home, you do have a tendency, you may have a feeling of detachment.
Right.
Like you don't matter as much. And so I try to foster the relationship so that my ex-husband knows that he's just as important in their lives as I am.
It takes a big woman to do that. Much respect to you, Lenita.
So that's what tomorrow looks like, and then
Much
we
respect.
should be in the business of that. Lanita is one of my good friends, and Lanita talked me into writing my book. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
Which book are you talking about, Paul?
We're talking about Be Undumpable. That's what I started on. I mean,
Okay.
no, I started on I Am My Own Dad, which you can find it on Amazon. But also, Be Undumpable, we really talked about that. And
Is
it
that
came
on
out.
Amazon also?
Absolutely. I'm surprised. I'm sorry I didn't have my books here today. But Lanita, you know the book, right?
Yes, most
Absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely. She was one of the people we bounced off the information to make sure I had it right.
All right, so as it relates to
gotta
breaking that cycle, you're saying that you have made it so that even though you're divorced, your ex-husband have access. You don't block access to your kids, to their father.
Absolutely not.
Very good,
Absolutely
very
not.
positive.
All right. Hey, Lanita, we got to get going, okay?
Wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure speaking to the both of you.
Well, thank you so
God
much.
bless you, Lenita. Thanks for calling.
All right.
Thank you.
So, cycle breaker. So me and my ex-wife, former wife, Bree, we're actually in the middle of a book called Divorce Not Divided.
Ah,
And
so
we're-
you're obviously friends.
Yes, we're friends. I think after 3 kids, you should be grandfathered in the idea of being friends. If not, they still need you.
That is another cycle-breaking thing that you've done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to do things where I bring my family to the public and let them be who they are. Not try to hide my shame and hide in my house and not change my life for them. Because my real change is really for my grandkids. Because they're tomorrow. They're tomorrow's answers. We don't start making the normal, making their new norm the things that we want our families to be. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I don't want them to do the work. I'm going to do the work right now.
Yeah, you're planting a seed,
Absolutely.
and you're going to reap the fruit of your harvest
Absolutely.
in your grandkids.
Absolutely.
I'm proud
So that's
for you.
why after you're divorced, you still have to be family. And that's why she's there.
I'm proud of you.
Absolutely. So, Nat, we still here? You going to give me another hour for free? What's up? Are we good? Say goodnight? All right. So this has been Paul Posey with Mario Peters on the Negative to Positive Show. I hope you got something from it. I know I did. I learned that I have a great friend in Mario.
Ditto.
Good, bad, and indifferent. He keeps me on point. Even though I want to go left, he says you might want to stay in the middle. And that's a powerful thing. So, hey, until 2 Wednesdays from now, 8 p.m., I think it's what, the 19th of December? I'll be back.
Happy holidays.
Tune in. Let's make it happen.
Happy holidays. Good night.
Good night from Paul Posey, Negative to Positive.